Hey everyone, this is Mrs. Slauson, one of the Algebra 2 teachers, and I will be going over ICANN number 3, the first attempt with you. So we will be writing our equations for our functions. In these examples, there is not a picture, so unfortunately, we won't be able to compare them to the graphing calculator to see if we did them correctly, but that's still okay. So for this ICANN, we are going to be writing in factored form, and we're going to be writing in standard form. So remember, factored form is parentheses. Those are our factors. And then standard form has no parentheses. And our goal is to write it in standard form. So we start with our highest exponent and we work our way down. So to get started, you do need the general form of a factored polynomial equation. And we will be using y in this example. And for our first example, we will be solving for a, so I'll be putting an a in there. And then following that will be our different factors with the different numbers that might be in there, okay? And just depending how many there are, that would continue. So let's go ahead and get started. So in our first example, you were given the zeros of 2, -2, and -1. So what we want to do is think about the factors that would have made those zeros, those solutions. So 2 would have come from x minus 2, the -2 would have come from x plus 2, and the -1 would have come from an x plus 1. And so what I like to do is just kind of go ahead and get this process started by replacing these parentheses here with these parentheses here. So let's do that. So y equals a, and then I put in my parentheses. And now what I'm going to do is I will take the fact that they have given me an x and y coordinate, and wherever I see x, I'm going to fill in with 1. And then I'll go to where the y is, and I'll replace that with -12. So I'm going to do that next. And then what I'll do is I will want to solve for a, and since there's one type of a, I will want to get a by itself. But what I'm going to do is get this all cleaned up, and you are welcome to go to your graphing calculator if you want. Whoops, there we go. And type that in, starting with the parentheses. So for instance, again, I could type in, once I can get the parentheses going, 1 minus 2, parentheses, and then I would just keep typing those in. I'm going to do this without the calculator's assistance. So what ends up happening is that I'll have the -12 with my a. 1 minus 2 is -1, 1 plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 1 is 2, and then I'll just multiply those. And when I multiply those three numbers in parentheses, I do get a -6. And so to get a by itself, I just need to move that -6 by dividing, and I learned that a is 2. So now what I'm going to do is go back to my starting point, which is here, boxing it in, and I'm just going to take this a that you see there, right? And I'm just going to replace that a with the a value that I have. And then I'll have an equation written in factored form. All right, now what I want to do is get this in standard form. So that means I'll have to multiply all these factors out. I call it the neighbors meet the neighbors, so that I don't have any more of those parentheses. So I'm going to start by rearranging this a very specific way. I want what we call the conjugates. The conjugates are when you look at your factor and the terms within the factor are the same, that you have a plus and a minus. So I'm going to rearrange it so that the x plus 2 and x minus 2 are grouped together, because that's just going to make this whole multiplying process a little bit easier. And so now I'm going to start, let's go with this, by just taking a moment here and having my neighbors meet the neighbors, or distributing, or foiling, whatever your teacher calls it. So x is going to meet everybody first, and I get x squared minus 2x, and then 2 goes to meet everybody, and I get a positive 2x, and multiplying again, I get a -4. So when I'm done, these neighbors become x squared, the 2x's cancel out, and I get a -4. And now what I'm going to do is take the other neighbors here and have these neighbors meet, which gets me to 2x plus 2, which I'm going to bring down in front of the other one because now these two new groups will meet or multiply together. So I'm going to have 2x go meet everybody first and get to 2x cubed, right, minus 8x. Then this 2 will go visit and I get 2x squared. And then the last distributing or neighbor meets neighbor, I get a minus 8. And technically, the best way to write in standard form is to have the highest exponent go first, then the next highest, then the x until I get to minus 8. If you do want to check on your calculator, what you could do is go to your y equals button, put this one in y1 and put this one in y2, and then you could see if once you hit zoom 6 to graph, you should only see one shape because they're the same shape, they just appear in different equivalent forms. So that, I guess, is one way you could check to see if you're right, but it's, you don't trust that you did this right. All right, let's go to number 2, another problem. And you're going to see again this word that we've talked about before, multiplicity of 2. And that just means with the 0 and the 4, the negative 2 having a multiplicity of 2 means it just appears twice. Okay, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get it in factored form first, then I'll move to standard form. So first I'm going to start with the factors that make this. So x would have made 0, x minus 4 makes 4, and x plus 2 twice would have gotten me each of those minus 2's. So I'm going to go and put them in this general form here. These are multiplying. And then I'm going to go and take the fact that they have given me x and y value, and I'm going to put those wherever I see an x, I'll put the negative 1, and whatever I see the y, I'll put the 15. So I'm going to do that next. So in for x, we'll go negative 1. And then you are very welcome to turn on your calculator, type this in all the way, don't modify it. You should keep it looking the way it looks. Without a calculator though, I'll leave the negative 1 alone. Negative 1 take away 4 is negative 5, and negative 1 plus 2 is 1, and then I'll be squaring that. So maybe at this point you want to turn on your calculator. But when you multiply those, you end up getting this, kind of running out of room. And then after dividing, I can realize, hey, a is 3. So now I can go back to this original version that I'm going to box in now and replace that a with the 3. And that is factored form. And now what I'll do is I'll take this problem and I'm just going to get it into standard form. So to do that, you will want to realize that x plus 2 squared really means that there are 2 of them, and I would group those together. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'll have these neighbors meet, and then I'll have these neighbors meet. So first, just distributing my 3x in, I get 3x squared minus 12x. And then when I have these neighbors meet, I'll get x squared plus 2x. Then I'll get another 2x, and then when the last neighbors meet, I get 4. So when all of these neighbors are done, I get x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then just to drop this one lower, I'll bring that other one through, and now I'll have these new sets of neighbors meet. So when I do that, 3x squared can go meet everybody first, so I get 3x to the 4th. Then I'll get 12 with x cubed. And then I'll get 12 with x squared. And then when I have these new group meet, I'll have a negative with the 12x cubed. I'll have a negative 48 with x squared. And then I'll have a negative 48 with an x. And so what will happen is the 3x to the 4th drops down. These will cancel out. The 12x squared with the negative 48, x squared gives me, what is that, 36? And then the minus 48x. And now I can write this, in factored form, highest exponent, then the next, and then the next. All right, last one. This time you're going to see the directions, write a polynomial. Again, we're going to do this in factored and standard form, but it needs to have real coefficients in there, which means these i's that are popping up will not be allowed in either factored form or standard form, and that's pretty easy to get rid of. The good news about this one is you can go ahead and assume that a is 1, so we won't have to do all the math that we did up here to figure out what a is. We can just go straight into factored form, straight into standard form, but the main thing here is just make sure that you don't have any i's in factored or standard form. So the factors or parentheses it gave me 4 is x minus 4. 3i came from x minus 3i, and the negative 3i came from x plus 3i. So this is great for factored form. I don't have to put an a in there. I can go ahead and put that 1 in there. But the directions say only real coefficients. Coefficients are the numbers that are hanging out in front of the variable. So the 3 i's are the big issue. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment, have these neighbors meet. These are called complex conjugates. And what you're going to see is as they meet, those i's are about to go away. We're going to get an x squared plus a 3i with an x. And then when these distribute, I get a negative 3i with an x, so that's why they're about to go away. And then when these neighbors meet, you get negative 9 with I squared. And what you need to remember is that I squared is worth negative 1. So you can take that negative 9 times negative 1 and basically turn this into a positive 9 that joins the x squared. And now I can write this in factored form. Y equals, if you want to put the a of 1 with the x minus 4, and then the x minus 3i and x plus 3i become x squared plus 9. Now the last thing to do to get it into standard form is let's take a moment and have these neighbors meet. I'm going to drop the 1. And here we go. So first neighbors meet, I get x cubed. Next neighbor meets, I get 9x. These neighbors meet, I get minus 4x squared, and then the last neighbor meets and I get a subtracting 36, and then I will just write it in standard form. So the highest exponent, then the next, minus 36. And that is your ICAN 3 first attempt.